When you're looking at getting weapons in Hypixel Skyblock, one of the first things you'll think of is the ultimate enchant and the enchants that you put on the item. Ultimate enchants can buff a weapon by extreme amounts, and it can make them deal a lot more damage. For example, on my Hyperion, I have Ultimate Wise 5, because you'll see with Ultimate Wise 5, it basically makes it cost half the amount of mana that it normally would cost. So in today's video, I'm going to go over all of the ultimate enchants that you should use for your weapons, armors, bows, and stuff like that, and basically tell you which ones to use and which ones not to use for each situation, because there are actually some different situations that certain things would be better, even when normally they'd be pretty terrible. So let's start off with the best ultimate enchant for swords. So for mage weapons like a Hyperion where you're doing right-click damage, Chimera is the best, but it is pretty prohibitively expensive. Like this Chimera 1 book is 90 million coins. If I try to look for a Chimera 5 book, I'm not even sure there are any on the auction house. Yeah, the highest on the auction house right now is Chimera 2. They are insanely expensive to buy, and getting Chimera 5 is in like the billion coin range. So it's pretty cost prohibitive for you to do. But if you're doing mage weapons or you want a bunch of magic, fine, for example, for the mythological event, then it is in fact the best. But for other weapons, One for All is currently super OP. I actually have a video on my channel detailing how you can double your damage by using One for All, but One for All is also quite expensive. The cheapest One for All book right now being around 11 mil. But you can watch my double damage video if you want more information on One for All. But let's say you're on a bit more of a budget, which a lot of people will be. And if you still want lifesteal, which you will not get for One for All, a lot of people will pick Soul Eater, which is the second best for straight up damage. And Soul Eater is pretty powerful because your weapon gains damage based on the damage of the last monster killed and adds it to the end of your next hit, and that can actually be really powerful, especially when you're dealing with some of the much higher damaging mobs in Master Mode and higher floors like Floor 7. But of course, if it is a mage weapon and you can't afford Chimera, then I would recommend Ultimate Wise 5, because the extra mana that it gives you by halving the amount of mana that you need to use is really important. And some people, if they don't have a lot of mana, can't even really use Chimera because, I mean, you just don't have enough mana. So it is very important if you're going to try to play mage in dungeons to try to get Ultimate Wise 5 on your mage weapons. There are, of course, also some other use case ones. For example, with the aspect of Jerry, you would want to use the Ultimate Jerry enchant, which actually makes it surprisingly not terrible, which is surprising because the aspect of the Jerry is a terrible weapon. You can also use Swarm, especially for ghost farming, or if you're killing a lot of things in a group. With ghost farming, it's much better because you're like with a bunch of other mobs, and it's just really helpful. People put that on stuff like a Soul Whip a lot. So Swarm actually can be useful, but is not the greatest ultimate enchant besides that, which leads to it being not really that much. But let's move on to the terrible, and the terrible is Combo. Combo's horrible, don't use it, pick a different enchant. Alright, now are we going to move on to armor. So let's start off with the best. The best is Legion, especially for things like fishing, and it costs a lot of money. And Last Stand is also very good if you are looking to have a little bit of extra health, and if you're getting below 40% health, because the way Last Stand works, Last Stand increases your defense by 5% when you're below 40% health, and that goes up if you get a higher level of Last Stand. See, now it's 25% with Last Stand 5, so that actually can turn out to be a decent bit of defense. That is quite helpful sometimes. But there are also some other options, including Wisdom, which a lot of people like to put on mage armor. You see, I've got Last Stand, but I've got Wisdom on my Storm chestplate, and that is because a lot of people like having the extra intelligence that it gives you, because Wisdom does give you intelligence based on how many levels you have. So that is also another option. And basically in the worst category, if you're building an XP farm, it kind of makes sense, and that is no pain, no gain, because it does give you a little bit of XP, but unless you're making an XP farm, it's pretty much useless. Don't use it. And the same goes for Bank. Bank is horrible. Why would you use it? Just buy a booster cookie. They're not that expensive, and Bank is the worst. It's horrible. Now let's move on to bows. So the best for bows is a little bit subjective. So the best for bows that fire multiple arrows is Rend. It's super overpowered on the bows that shoot 5 arrows. For other bows, you should probably use Soul Eater, because that's still quite overpowered with the multiplicative damage based on how much damage. For other bows, you should probably use Soul Eater because it does give you the 10 times damage of the previous mob you just killed, which can be pretty powerful. And if you are on a tight budget, Swarm is also fine. It's not great, and not as good as the other two, but it does work in a pinch. So this video did take a little bit of time to make because I had to research all the ultimate enchants and find out which one was the best. I want to say thank you to Bamper and RMRF/ for help with fact-checking this video. Their links will be in the description, of course. And thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.